The Sergeant Bergdahl terrorist trade. Did the Obama administration break the law by going around Congress? And commanders on the ground then weigh in on the circumstances of Bergdahl's disappearance. This is Special Report. Good evening, I'm Brett Baer, coming to you tonight live from Fox News World Headquarters in New York. The reactions to the release of the only known American prisoner of war in Afghanistan could not be more opposite tonight. On one hand, a family and a hometown prepares to welcome home a son. On the other, criticism over the terms of the prisoner swap, the enormous price tag, and what it could mean for other American military personnel down the road. National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin begins our coverage tonight from the Pentagon.
Sergeant Bowe Bergdahl remains under the care of a team of doctors and psychologists at a U.S. military base in Landstuhl, Germany, where defense officials say he's being given nutritional supplements and reintegrated slowly. He still has not spoken to his parents.
Bowe has been gone so long that it's going to be very difficult to come back. It's like a diver going deep on a dive and has to stage back up through recompression to get the nitrogen bubbles out of the system. If he comes up too fast, it could kill him.
The 5 Taliban leaders released from Guantanamo Bay as part of the prisoner swap arrived in Qatar looking robust as they were embraced by their families and friends. Among them are 2 former deputy Taliban intelligence and defense ministers and Mohammed Fazl, a Taliban commander Human Rights Watch says should be tried for war crimes.
There's deep concern about these individuals who are the top, hardest of the hardliners being released and having the opportunity to re-enter the fight.
Meanwhile, there are growing claims from members of Bowe Bergdahl's unit speaking out through social media that Bergdahl ought to face charges for deserting. The White House is deflecting that issue.
Sergeant Bergdahl was in captivity for 5 years, held against his will, and it was absolutely the right thing to do.
En route to Afghanistan, Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel was also asked if Bergdahl would be prosecuted by the military for desertion or worse.
Our first priority is assuring his well-being and his health and getting him reunited with his family. Other circumstances that may develop and questions, those will be dealt with later.
The DoD has never publicly stated that Bergdahl deserted his post, but sources familiar with the investigation into his disappearance say there is evidence he walked off base alone without a weapon in 2009. In 2012, Rolling Stone magazine published emails purportedly between Bergdahl and his father before he was captured, which caused many to question the Army private's intentions. Bergdahl wrote, quote, "I have seen their ideas and I am ashamed to even be American. I am sorry for everything. The horror that is America is disgusting." Standing beside the President of the United States in the Rose Garden, Bergdahl's father chose to speak in Pashto, the language of the Taliban, his son's captors.
I'd like to say to Bowe right now, who's having trouble speaking English, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Zayabayem. I'm your father, Bowe.
Adding to the confusion, in a statement on Sunday, Bergdahl's father congratulated Bowe.
I'm proud of how much you wanted to help the Afghan people and what you were willing to do to go to that length.
Meanwhile, members of Congress are accusing the president of breaking the law by failing to notify Congress 30 days before releasing any prisoner from Guantanamo Bay.
I think the Obama administration negotiated with the Obama administration if they had to follow the law of Congress, and the Obama administration decided that the Obama administration did not have to call Congress. I mean, this is absolutely ludicrous.
While his parents await their son, their pain was evident in his mother's voice.
You are free. Freedom is yours. I will see you soon, my beloved son. I love you both.
Taliban leader Mullah Omar, in a rare public statement, declared the exchange that led to the release of the Taliban leaders a, quote, great victory. Brett?
Jennifer Griffin live at the Pentagon. Jennifer, thank you. Let's learn more about previous efforts to find Sergeant Bergdahl. I talked a short time ago with Michael Waltz, a former Army Special Forces officer who commanded units involved in the search for Bergdahl in 2009. He's also the author of the soon-to-be-released book, Warrior Diplomat, A Green Beret's Battles from Washington to Afghanistan. He is currently Senior National Security Fellow at the New America Foundation. I asked him to think back to when Bergdahl was serving with that unit, what he was doing.
Well, as you said, Brett, I was the commander of multiple Special Forces teams along the Afghanistan-Pakistan border, including the province, Paktika province, where Bowe Bergdahl went missing on June 30th, 2009. So I had control of multiple teams across multiple provinces. And as soon as we received word that we had a missing American soldier whose whereabouts were unknown, we essentially stopped everything. Every soldier, thousands of soldiers throughout all of eastern Afghanistan were ordered to stop what they were doing, from reconstruction projects to looking for members of the senior Taliban leadership. Everyone stopped and shifted everything to searching for Private Bergdahl.
Well, let me rewind. His capture, as you called it, it's been described by some in multiple news organizations now that he kind of walked off post.
Well, Brett, I'm deliberately trying not to use the word capture. Our understanding, and as we're seeing now all over the internet from soldiers who were with Private Bergdahl at the time and were involved in the search, are all clear that he walked off post, that he left with nothing more than water and a few other items, left his weapon, left his helmet, left his body armor behind, and this has been out in the internet and kind of in the media for some time now. So in our view, our understanding at the time, and mine still, and this needs to be thoroughly investigated, he was not captured, he went missing, he left on his own.
Yeah, and that time when you're there, that's what you understood as well.
That's right. That's right. And what was really disturbing, Brett, frankly, was the Taliban knew we were looking for him. In fact, they were deliberately leaving false bits of information and letting those out to ambush us and to purposely draw us into difficult situations looking for Sergeant Bergdahl. I think that's why you're seeing such a vitriolic reaction, honestly, from a number of folks that were with him. In my own case, I had one team that was baited into a Afghan compound with a car bomb rigged to explode. By the grace of God, it didn't. And I had another team who was rigged into, or was lured into an area where the ceilings were lined with explosives to bring it down on top of their head. And again, fortunately, that ambush failed. But to be perfectly candid, I think now Sergeant Bergdahl has a lot of explaining to do, and there are a number of soldiers, there are hundreds of soldiers that are now out on the internet asking for some accountability.
What about the deaths? There have been reports that there were at least 6 deaths tied to this search for Bergdahl. Can you confirm that? At least.
I would say at least. There was a very good piece now out today from a soldier who worked with Bergdahl that listed by name the soldiers that died while looking for him, and to the point of accountability. I think he owes us, both the men that he left behind that night, the men and women who were involved in the search for him, and most importantly, Brett, the mothers of those soldiers that didn't come home this weekend. They deserve answers, and when the time is appropriate, the medical professionals say it's okay, Sergeant Bergdahl needs to give those answers and needs to be held accountable if these allegations are true.
Did you know people who died?
I didn't. I knew them. They were not soldiers that worked directly for me, but we heard everything on the radio. These were soldiers that were out on checkpoints. There were a string of checkpoints that were put in place to try to prevent Sergeant Bergdahl from being taken into Pakistan, and as soon as these checkpoints were in place, oftentimes they were attacked. So we worked alongside units who lost soldiers. Again, fortunately and thankfully, none of mine were killed, but it was far too close for comfort, and it was some pretty harrowing situations.
Yeah, last thing, Mike, you spent a lot of time there hunting down bad guys, some of the guys that ended up in Guantanamo Bay. 5 of them are now getting released. They're going to Qatar, but they have to be there for a year. Your thoughts on that and these detainees and the whole process?
Well, Brett, as Senator McCain, Representative Mike Rogers, and others have said, these were the worst of the worst. And I can't emphasize to you, having been out on the ground, how truly evil some of these individuals are. During my time there was a girls' school that was machine gunned with the girls in it. There was a 7-year-old boy who was hung by the Taliban for having dollars in his pockets. These are evil individuals, and Brett, in my view, in the view of thousands of other soldiers, America is less safe, and the world is a more dangerous place than it was 48 hours ago before their release.
Mike Walsh, Special Forces Commander in that region, searching for Sergeant Bergdahl. Mike, thanks.
Thank you, Brett.
What do you think? Do you think the Bergdahl deal should have been made? Let me know at facebook.com/BrettBaerSR or on Twitter @BrettBaer. You can use the hashtag Special Report. Up next, is President Obama's new climate change plan a lifesaver or a job killer? And what about the politics of it? First, what some of our Fox affiliates across the country are covering tonight. KTVU in San Francisco, where the FBI is looking for a Bay Area man suspected of having dangerous explosives. The apartment of 42-year-old Ryan Chamberlain was the focus of an FBI operation Saturday that closed off his neighborhood for 15 hours. Fox 5 in San Diego, where a 91-year-old woman set a world record for the fastest marathon time for her age group. Harriet Thompson finished in 7 hours, 7 minutes, 14 seconds. A cancer survivor, she raised $90,000 for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Congratulations. And this is a live look at Chicago from Fox 32. A gorgeous night there. The big story there tonight, the state's new same-sex marriage law took effect Sunday. That's tonight's live look outside the Beltway from Special Report. We're outside the Beltway, too, in New York. We'll be right back.